Anyways, a favorite robot from the 1950s transported here to the future to repeal women's rights, Brooke Van Velden. Document reveals minister's early tensions with COVID Commission chair. Journal of Affairs, Brooke Van Velden said she had confidence in the chair of the Royal Commission into the COVID-19 response, despite a briefing obtained by Newsroom suggesting significant tensions between the pair earlier this year. So to summarize essentially what's going on here, there has been documents revealed about some talking points that were suggested by officials from, I assume, officials from the government, Department of Internal Affairs, DIA. There were some suggestions that were given to her that had quite strong leadings into what she should say in her meeting with, talking points, in her meeting with the chair. This was after the first report came out. So this is after the phase 1 of the COVID-19 report, the report after the phase 1 of the inquiry. That came out in November 2024, and there's a little bit of information that goes behind this. But there were some talking points that were drafted by officials warning deviation from the Commission's schedule or budget will not be acceptable, that the minister would have no option but to consider other solutions if improvements were not made. It is not clear whether Van Velden actually made use of these talking points at her meeting with Illingworth, the chair. So essentially, she wasn't happy with the first report that came out. Well, someone wasn't happy with the first report that came out. Or they weren't happy with the way things were tracking with the second phase, the second report or whatever, because they were expecting things like, timely updates and that sort of thing. So what I find really interesting about this, basically, is the talking points she was given. So it puts her at a point of a bit of a puppet, which kind of makes sense. But some of the things that were in those talking points were many of the specific concerns raised by officials are redacted, but one line that was released shows concerns about the Commission running over time. Another risk we see concerns the timing of the activities towards the end of the inquiry. Experience suggests that the inquiry will likely need more time for natural justice and the production of the final report than it is currently allocated, which is about 18 months. Royal Commission frequently runs beyond their original deadlines. The three most recent ones, so the COVID-19, the Christchurch terror attacks, and the abuse in state care, they were all required at least one extension. And the talking points that were drafted for Van Velden focus on this. So things that she could say, this is not quoting her, but things that she could say, the suggestions. The government has made a significant investment into this inquiry in a challenging fiscal and economic environment. Any variation from on time and within budget will not be acceptable. There is no additional funding available, nor is there additional time. When your report is delivered, it will be ready. It will be already 6 years since the start of the pandemic. As I've communicated before, including in your appointment letter, I will not be supportive of any proposals to delay the delivery of the final report. I have heard several times from you that the inquiry is making excellent progress, but I have yet to see sufficient evidence to back this up, or a detailed plan that gives me confidence that you will meet your deadline. Those were two things that were drafted for her to say. Talking points.
Yeah.
Those were talking points. Those are not talking points. They sound like a speech prepared for someone to reiterate, which is kind of funny because we keep calling her a robot. This is the sort of thing I expect them to write for Luxon, to be like, can you practice saying this?
Here's your ChatGPT response.
So Van Velden was to ask Illingworth to commission independent assessment of the inquiry's planning, progress, risk analysis, and financial situation, including expected expenditure to the end of the financial year. I'm not prepared to let further valuable time pass without evidence that this necessary progress is being made. In the absence of you making these improvements, my concerns and lack of confidence will remain. I will then have no option but to consider other solutions. This is what she was advised to tell him. And then she basically refutes it, saying these were talking points, and that she was assured, she got the assurance she needed with the meeting that she had with him. So it's kind of a weird one. Whether or not this is what happened or what was said between them, she's saying it didn't. But those are some very, very pushy things. And I'm reading into this, so this is not what it says, but what I'm reading into this is that, one, they want it to not go over time. And this means it could be a rushed job. And we've seen this with the RSB submissions. We've seen this with so many of the other submissions that they keep shortening the deadline, which means you probably get less time to get it out there, less evidence to collate, and there'll probably be more errors and less error checking.
Absolutely.
So in theory, you could end up with a report that is perhaps insufficient or is missing information, or there's not enough research there to fully consider it. Would you agree, in your opinion?
Oh, yeah.
That that's what it sounds like?
It definitely seems like, it seems strange to highlight the point of like, oh, we want it done properly, but if being done properly means it has to take longer, then no, thank you. Which is unfortunately not surprising, but is extremely disgusting, the kind of way to look at it. And I mean, it makes me wonder why they want it to be done this much earlier, kind of thing, because like it just seems strange to all of a sudden be like, come on, we have to hurry this up, we have to hurry, get done, because they know, I'm sure they know that the faster it gets done, the more likely it'll feed into what they think about what this inquiry looks at. I don't know, it just seems shady. And also just seems really unnecessary. I don't know, the whole thing kind of reads as like a really passive aggressive parent almost. Like it just, I don't, definitely got yuck vibes.
So I don't know where it was in this specifically, but when I was reading it, I started to have questions. I don't know what exactly prompted it. And why I wanted to look into it. But essentially, because we've been talking about the COVID inquiry all week, and then the thing of like, Jacinda and Chris Hipkins and Aisha Verrill saying that they're not going to appear on camera because they've already answered the questions, which they've detailed in all of the things that they needed to know. And essentially, the commission can't force them to because they've already answered the questions in written. But I was starting to ask myself a few questions because I'm like, okay, so the first report came out, and there's something in here that basically said the areas that she wanted more detail from. So I kind of read it as there are things in the first report that didn't meet their expectations, or they wanted to dig deeper into something. Because the first COVID inquiry, the first phase of it, they call it phase 1, but as far as I understand, phase 1 is only because they said they're going to do the second one. The second one was forced by the coalition, if what I am reading is correct. So phase 1 is really the report. It came out in November 2024, and essentially, it was enough for the public sector to learn from it. And the public health read into it a lot of the information that they needed to implement a better pandemic response the next time around. But I don't know why, but I wanted to look into this. And when I did, I learned some really interesting things. So back in September 2024, right, this is before the first, the one that we all kind of went, oh my goodness, the report's out, it's damning, whatever, I don't know. But I think it was just really well-rounded, and there were some criticisms, and they were rightfully so criticisms, and they were fair criticisms, and it's the first time we've had a pandemic of that in the last 100 years, so lots of things to learn. But essentially, the minister was to sit, this is Brooke Van Velden, to sit on the COVID Royal Commission report for months. So it was reported that she wasn't going to release the the Royal Commission response, or the first phase of the Royal Commission into the COVID-19 response. She's saying that she won't. She will withhold it until many months after she receives it in November. It did actually get released in November. I couldn't find exactly why that was, but I have a feeling it's because it wasn't positive of the government. There was criticism of the government. So instead of holding it back till the second phase came out, which people were critical
Yeah.
of because Health New Zealand needed that to draft an emergency response. I think she ended up releasing it. This is just my opinion, in my theory, because it was critical of the government and it worked in their favour.
Yeah.
So people were quite critical of it. Chris Hipkins said it was unprecedented for them to hold it back, flagrant violation of the law. They said that doing so will allow the second phase clear air for submissions, a response to their terms of reference rather than the response to the first phase's findings. Health New Zealand said the phase 1 findings will be held until the completion of phase 2. That's not due till February 2026, which will be 16 months after she receives it. This is what I want to read. It's extraordinary that the government might sit on and not publicly release the phase 1 report of the Royal Commission, perhaps even as long as 15 months until phase 2 reports. Giving phase 2 the inquiry clear air isn't good enough reason to hide the report from the public and sits awkwardly with the spirit of the Inquiries Act. Even though technically it doesn't breach the statutory requirement for reports to be tabled in Parliament as soon as practical, this is only due to the controlled way the inquiry had been segmented for the revised terms of reference. But the lack of transparency also doesn't square with the purpose of the phase 1 inquiry to learn lessons from our experience. It's proper for the public to know what needs to be improved sooner rather than later so we can make sure government is better prepared for future risks and we can democratically hold them to account if they drag the chain. The two-phase nature of the inquiry is very untidy and risks turning into a dog's breakfast. But it was eventually released. And because this report here, recapping the COVID-19 inquiry, was 28th of November. And it wasn't too far off when they said that would be the phase 1 would be released. But this is what was interesting. And it explains what the second phase is. The second phase was born from Nationals coalition agreements for both ACT and New Zealand First. The National ACT agreement promised to broaden the terms of reference of the Royal Commission into COVID-19 response, subject to public consultation. The National NZ First agreement went further, ensure as a matter of urgency in establishment and completion a full-scale, wide-ranging, independent inquiry conducted publicly with local and international experts into how the COVID-19 pandemic was handled in New Zealand. It promised to cover use of multiple lockdowns, vaccine procurement and efficacy, the social and economic impacts on both regional and national levels, and whether the decisions made and steps taken were justified. So a review, vaccine approval, safety and monitoring mandates, the imposition and maintenance of national and regional lockdowns, procurement, development and distribution of testing and tracing technologies and non-pharmaceutical public health materials. The inquiry doesn't have the power to determine the civil, criminal or disciplinary liability of any person. Which is interesting. Yeah. So, and then it says, the second phase will begin in 2020, on the 29th of November, expected to conclude early 2026. It's been reported Van Velden will withhold the first report for months, but it was released, as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
Definitely seems
Unless I'm
shady.
not right. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't released. Okay. Anyways, do you have any opinions on it?
Oh, I mean, I think it just, I don't know, it comes across like they clearly have made some kind of decision about what they think is going to happen, and they're just trying to be like, hey, hurry up. I think there was a comment I tried to start earlier that was basically like, you know, I want to hurry up because I already know what I've decided the answer is, and it shouldn't take you that long to fucking basically validate that. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised they're being like this, but at the same time, I also feel like there's just harping on about the COVID stuff at this point just feels kind of whatever. Like, okay, let's just let it get out there. Like, we've got so many things that are going on, and I feel like people should be less thinking about COVID inquiry and actually reminding themselves that COVID still exists and is around, and people should still be a bit COVID conscious. Also, good night, Kiwi Burb. Good night, Kiwi. Haha. Got him.
Okay, so it was okay, it was released. It wasn't released until February though, this year.
Yeah. That
Okay.
makes sense.
It
So they
was
held
released
it on.
eventually. So it wasn't released at the time in November. She did end up sitting on it for a couple of months. But yes, it was released this year. So that's good. Yeah, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen reports. So at the time of that, when that was written, it hadn't been released. So it has been obviously released now. Yeah, so a bit, I don't know. The whole thing of like the suggested points is just the weird one.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's where I think the weird vibes start, and definitely just seems like some shady shit. But at the same time, I feel like this could also be a way that they're trying to distract us from the other shit they're doing, like the bills that they're trying to run through the house at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely
Yeah.
seems shady, but when doesn't this government seem fucking shady?
But yeah, yeah, pretty much. And I'm not surprised at their intentions as well, and a lot of pushing for very certain. One for hitting the deadline, keeping it tight. Also making sure that they, it was in the article that the minister wasn't happy with the quarterly reports that they were bringing out, and I wonder if that's just purely because there's nothing to find. There's nothing more to report, and actually, that first phase report was really. I mean, it was 2022. It was not commissioned in 2022.
Yeah,
which is fair.
yeah.
It's good.
So they had like
It
what,
was
2
actually
years
during
basically.
that's during the Labour's
Yeah.
administration, and it was released 2024. So like 2 years or so is pretty substantial time to go through something, but it was fairly fresh, so you didn't have to go too far back. Obviously, we were quite online, so there's a lot of online resources to
Yeah.
look at. I'm sure they had lots of submissions that were fresh of people, unlike something like perhaps the abuse and state care, which would have been a lot of historical accounts and things, and a lot of historic evidence that they would have had to comb through. So it takes as long as it takes, but I wouldn't be surprised she's not happy with what they've put out so far, because there's nothing there. They've already done their job.
Pretty much.
So yeah, but
Fiscally
for everything
responsible
that
by
they
the
try
sounds.
and throw back and say, this is the other government, point the finger at the other government, look at what they didn't do, COVID. The next turn is like, Eric of Stanford is trying to get rid of Tadeo. Nikki no votes. You just wasted us $671 million. So they're really strong. I don't know if I've ever seen this, and that's probably because I'm a little bit older than I was too young before, during the national government. But I just don't think I've seen this level of like just shitty policy, just shitty policy and just constant shit. And the only thing they've got back is Labor bad.
Yeah.
And for everything
I mean,
they
this
try
is
and point the
definitely
finger,
different.
they just like they've done it to themselves half the time. Like,
Well, it feels like they
yeah.
came in and now we've just got a bunch of toddlers who are running the country while the adults who, you know, the other side of the house, are sitting there with their hands fucking tied because there's nothing really, like, not a lot that they can do to stop these toddlers from fucking burning the whole place down.